Fouad Youcefi is a Swedish journalist who's spent quite some time following and covering the Julian Assange debacle. He now joins us via Skype from New York in the United States. A very good evening to you, Mr. Fouad. Thank you so much for joining us. Do we know why the Ecuadorian embassy revoked his asylum status?
Well, multiple reasons, but what we can say is that in October, the embassy put out some rules for Assange to follow. They were quite tired of him by then already, but they put up some rules about how he could communicate with the world, how he could, what he was allowed to do politically, but also talking to him about how he should take care of a cat that he had in the embassy. And so what the Prime Minister of Ecuador said earlier today is that Julian Assange broke a lot of those rules, and that, well, they are tired of him in some sense now.
There are also allegations that he was spied on in the embassy itself. Just how true are these allegations?
Well, the truth is we don't really know yet. These allegations came first a year ago through an article from The Guardian, and they had read some secret files from Ecuador claiming that they put up some surveillance cameras and so on in the embassy to monitor Julian Assange. Now, WikiLeaks used yesterday to repeat these claims or these allegations, but we still haven't heard any official confirmation of this. I do know that the UN are actually looking into this, and they were supposed to meet Assange in a few weeks to talk about this. But what will happen with that, I don't know as of this moment.
I mean, this indicates the breakdown of a relationship between Ecuador and Assange himself. I mean, could this have possibly been the reason why the Ecuadorian officials failed to protect him when he was dragged out of the embassy?
Well, what happened was that the UK police was invited into the embassy. Now, that is not a common thing. There are a lot of different world leaders that has not yet spoken about this. We are still, for example, waiting for Australia. Julian Assange is Australian, and we haven't heard anything from the Australian Prime Minister yet on this case. We did hear from Bolivia in South America. They were not happy, and they condemned the Ecuadorian decision to revoke his asylum. But still, we haven't heard from many countries.
I mean, the United States is so hell-bent in extraditing Assange. Even one West Virginia Democrat said it'll be very good to get him back on US soil so they can investigate and get the facts from him and who his connections are, and of course his line of distribution network of the information. Is there any likelihood that he will be extradited to the United States anytime soon?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there any likelihood that he will be extradited to the United States?
Well, we'll see what happens now. I know that, the charge that he's being requested by the U.S. to be extradited for is a charge that could only lead to 5 years in prison. What he fears is other charges, of course, and ultimately the charges related to the Espionage Act. Now, that could lead to life in prison or even death penalty in the U.S.
Do we know where he's kept now and what sort of further charges might be put forward in the United Kingdom?
So he is currently held in custody in London, and he's already been convicted today for the minor charge in London, which is skipping bail. He broke his bail conditions when he walked into the Ecuadorian embassy in 2012. So he's already been convicted for that earlier today, and now when deciding on whether he should be extradited or not to the U.S., the UK will ask their American colleagues for proof of this charge that the US is trying to charge him with.
I mean, remember that he faced sexual assault allegations in Sweden when he sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2012, fearing extradition, of course, to the United States. Do we know the latest about the Swedish investigations and the plans for a possible prosecution?
Well, all of the Swedish cases have been inactive, actually. 3 of them they have been dropped because too much time has passed since the incidents. Now, the most serious one, an alleged rape, that case was actually put aside. In Sweden, the prosecutor can say, okay, we've done everything we can. We're not dropping the charges, but we are putting this case at rest for now. And so that's what they did with the serious rape charge. But what happened today was that one of the victims actually demanded that case to be reopened. And so now the Swedish prosecutor's office are actually, thinking about reopening the case.
I mean, the fact that Sweden dropped that investigation into Assange in 2017, but as I've just mentioned today, the Swedish prosecution lawyer representing the rape accuser to reopen the investigation. So what do you read into the timing of the possible reinstatement of those charges?
Well, I think it's quite natural, because when they actually dropped the charge in 2017, the main reason was that the prosecutor could not do anything more while Julian Assange was in the embassy. And so now, when he's not longer in the embassy, I do understand why the victim is trying to get this case reopened now.
Assange himself has argued that these charges are politically motivated. Do you agree?
It's really hard to say. I would say that the Swedish authorities are really thorough, and that they, in terms of political involvement, I would say almost the opposite, that all of politics has tried to take a step back in this and not even talking or commenting on the case. But, you never know what's going on behind the curtains, of course. And I can imagine that the pressure has been tough on the prosecutors from the Americans.
Are you also of the same school of thought that his arrest is aimed at shutting down press freedom?
Well, that is certainly something that many people fear now. Julian Assange is a very decisive figure right now. Some say he is a criminal, even that he is guilty of treason in some way. Some say that he's a press freedom hero in some way. And so this story is not finished. This story it hasn't been told until the last page is written, and I think that's years from now.
All right, Mr. Youcefi, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.